Because I sort of felt like, oh, China, I've worked in Asia, I can do Thailand too. And it's totally different. It's a completely different country and culture and system and all that. So it hasn't been easy.
Be quiet on set.
Okay.
Tero Documentary presents Filming in Thailand, a podcast for movie lovers with exclusive stories from behind the scenes.
Rolling sound
Sound rolling.
and action.
Hi, I'm your host Stéphane Lambert, and this is a new episode of Filming in Thailand. Here we are. This is a new episode of Filming in Thailand with our guest Patrick Carr. So, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
First of all, very important question. Are you filming in Thailand?
I am filming in Thailand. Set up a new filming studio here in Thailand 3 or 4 years ago, and we have projects past, present, and future.
Filming in Thailand.
So you graduate from a prestigious university, the Oxford University in the UK,
That's right.
and already you had some interest in of Chinese culture, since you had a degree in Chinese, and then you became a consultant, nothing to do with filming,
That's right.
and the next information I have is that you founded your company in China. What happened? What went wrong?
Filming in Thailand.
So, to take it back a couple of steps, I come from a very rural part of the UK, nothing much going on, and studied languages at school, and then kind of wanted to expand my horizons. And at the time, China was this sort of big, almost like black hole, and no one really knew too much about what was going on there. It was, still not really integrated at all into the international community. So it seemed like a perfect place to get away from my small town in rural England.
China.
China.
That's a big step.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, in the rash and innocence of youth, you just sort of take these big decisions that you have no idea what effect it's going to have on the rest of your life. But in hindsight, it was a fairly inspired decision. I had no kind of inkling at the time of how China would sort of explode onto the international scene, and how, later on in life, people were like, oh, wow, you really kind of had some great insight and foresight into, what was going to happen. And actually, I didn't have any. I was just sort of a little bit blindly thinking, where could I go that would be exciting and interesting, and I could have some adventures, and China was definitely that.
But did you had some contact already thanks to your study? Do you have some people to welcome you there?
Yeah, well, this was later. So that was when I was deciding to study Chinese.
Okay.
And then as part of the course at Oxford, we actually went to Taiwan as part of the course, because in China at that time, they wouldn't really let international students integrate with local Chinese. So you'd go to China mainland and you actually wouldn't get to speak any Chinese. You'd be with the other international students. So we went to Taiwan. But then obviously, as that sort of progressed and I sort of graduated, China was becoming the next big thing. And it seemed like a really amazing, it felt sort of like a bit of a no-brainer that I should go to China, having, being one of the few kind of people back in the UK, who could. I think there were sort of 12 other graduates in my year, and I think that's still the case actually. But one of the few people who could speak Chinese, and with China becoming this big story, it felt like a bit of a no-brainer to go there. I actually, straight out of university, I went to a management consultancy, strategy consultancy, and that was really something I decided to do, because I didn't really know what else I should do.
So what brought you to the content industry, making movies?
So then I actually managed to, because I realized that I should be in China. My company at the time didn't have an office in China, but they had an office in Hong Kong. So I got them to send me out to Hong Kong, and I was working in China at the time a lot, like traveling around China. And then quite randomly, I I had some really good friends who were really into filmmaking. Just making short films, short documentaries, and they sort of wrote me in to be a part of their sort of crew. And before I knew it, I was sort of directing and producing new stuff, and just absolutely just fell in love with the whole filmmaking process. And quit my job and decided I'd do that instead. Yeah, so I
Crazy that was.
it was. I mean, at the time, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you sort of follow your passion, and when things seem quite clear and obvious when when I was doing this. Nothing against consultancy and all that, but it wasn't sort of really firing me up. Whereas every time I sort of got a camera in my hands or went on set, I'd just be sort of quite inspired. So
your background was more in business and management. And
that's right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Do you think it influenced the way you started with the camera?
I think so. When I was in Hong Kong, I decided that I was going to sort of quit. I wasn't quite as impulsive as maybe I mentioned, because I actually did a distance learning course of multimedia journalism, which was University of Bolton, and then also a university in China. And I took some time off work to go and do that. So I was doing a little bit of sort of multimedia journalism type studies. And actually because I was so interested in film, it was just at the time when the DSLRs were coming out, and sort of suddenly the democratization of sort of filmmaking, and suddenly it was very exciting to be holding a Canon 5D in your hand and sort of creating these beautiful images which previously you'd only seen in the movies, right? So it was just at that time that I sort of started sort of doing stuff, and I managed to convince my tutors at the university that I should actually, even though it was a photography journalism thing, that I should actually do it in video journalism. So I did various projects for that, and then I also did a bit of studying at the Film Academy in Hong Kong. But this was really sort of after I was kind of very much into the documentary and filmmaking scene, and sort of trying to just get some qualifications. I mean, in answer to your question, I think absolutely. I think I still use that toolkit that I learned at the in my sort of business consulting days. There's so much, I'm now a sort of more on the sort of producer side than, although I do still direct, but so much on the producer side is about communicating, being organized, budgeting, convincing people to do things that they don't want to do, all that stuff. So absolutely, I think I learned some good lessons that have brought me through to today.
Filming in Thailand.
Who were your main influencers, if we can use a word that is fashionable today?
I used to, I loved that sort of generation of Hong Kong filmmakers and Chinese filmmakers at the time. Of sort of like the sort of 90s.
Do you have one?
Wong Kar-wai. Wong Kar-wai was is still an influence on me, and I think he made some absolutely amazing, beautiful films which I still return to. So, the sort of direction of Wong Kar-wai and the sort of camera work of Christopher Doyle, those were big influences on me at the time. Yeah.
Filming in Thailand.
Is there, on the top of your mind, five films that influence the way you went in filmmaking and producing?
Yeah, I mean, I have to just sort of maybe mention that I don't really make feature films. I'm more on the sort of documentary and unscripted side. We do some drama. So, I'm definitely influenced by the visuals and the storytelling of those filmmakers. But, these days, sadly, although I love documentary and I love unscripted, so it's not really sadly, but I don't really follow in those footsteps. But at the time, Wong Kar-wai, I loved in the Mood for Love and Happy Together and Chungking Express. Those were sort of huge, beautiful movies for me. And then I'm just a big film lover, so I love Wes Anderson films. I love Christopher Nolan films. I love one of my favorite films is actually just gone blank. One of my favorite films is The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is another movie that I sort of go back to. And I think that one is because, I mean, all those movies, I think they have a huge, filmmaking aspects, but also the sort of music and the sort of concepts and ideas that are behind them.
Filming in Thailand.
You mentioned Christopher Nolan. At Filming in Thailand, we like quotes, and there is one here that is nice. It's Christopher Nolan saying, "Behind every successful film, there is a producer who believed in the story when no one else did." Do you agree?
100%. Yeah. So, I think one of the hardest parts of the job is convincing other people that, to make, to sort of share your vision and try to convince other people of your vision, right? So, ever since I started, we've had new ideas, developments, like constantly sort of having, going with all these sort of creative concepts. And of course, that's almost the easy part, that just the sort of creating a concept, a great character or a great story or a narrative or whatever it is. But then to sort of convince people that they should put their money, behind it. That's the real challenge.
The fact that you started this journey in China, I mean, you started to expand and to develop and to become who you are today, being based in China. Was it? Do you think it had an impact on your on the way you developed yourself into this career, or you were in China but you could have been anywhere because anyway you were filming, whatever you were filming at the time?
I think China had a massive impact on me. I think obviously as a producer you're always looking for subject matter and stories. In China it's not the easiest. Obviously we know there is censorship, there's things that you can and can't say. You're constantly kind of trying to figure out where the lines are. No one ever says where the lines are. So, that's a challenge, to try and find great subject matter that will work for an international audience, but will also mean that you don't get sort of thrown out of China immediately.
Filming in Thailand.
Working in those conditions, yeah, it's tough, and but also I think it did shape me, and I think that there were amazing stories to be told about that period in China. The new, obviously the big boom economically, but really, what impact that had on its people, and I think there was also a huge sort of creative upswelling at the time, and we were sort of tapping into that. My wife was actually a ballerina for the National Ballet of China, so I was hanging out with a lot of dancers and a lot of artists and creative types around Beijing at that time, and it was a real sort of positive and it felt like sort of boom time. It felt like anything was possible, and I think that was possibly different to what was happening anywhere else in the world at the time, and it was really exciting to be in China at that time.
Filming in Thailand.
Do you believe your life would have been the same if instead of starting up in China and moving to Thailand, you would have done the opposite, starting up in Thailand and then moved to China?
Mm-hmm. Well, I met my wife in China, so I think that it would definitely be very different. I mean, I think it would. I think you can't help but be influenced by your surroundings, by what's going on politically and artistically in the country, by the people around you, by what inspires you, by just your everyday conversations with people. So absolutely, I think it would be totally different, but I wouldn't change it.
You are listening to Filming in Thailand, a podcast by Tero Documentary, with your host Stéphane Lambert.
You are listening to Filming in Thailand. We are still with our guest Patrick Carr, and I just ask you if you could have done the same journey so far, but starting in Thailand and moving to China. You said basically no. You are now in Thailand, so tell me how you decided to move from working in China to working in Thailand, and then if as a newcomer, but you're not really a newcomer, but as a newcomer, you are facing some interesting challenges.
Okay, so first of all, small correction is that I actually still have my film and TV production company in China. I'm still working on projects there, but obviously now moved over to Bangkok and have been here for 3.5 years with my family. I've got 2 kids here.
When you say 2 kids here, you mean 2 kids here, and how many kids? No, just 2 kids.
I brought my kids with me. Yeah. So here in Thailand, yeah, I mean, we actually have a place down in Koh Phangan it's an island down in the south of Thailand, and we've had that for 10 years, and you always used it as a little bit of a holiday destination to get away from China for a while. Loved Thailand, and in 2019 I actually sort of talked to my wife and said, look, why don't we have a bit of an adventure and move our family to our house in Koh Phangan. It's a small tropical island in the south of Thailand, and
opposite to Samui Island.
Yes, that's right. And she, luckily, agreed, and so we left China and moved to our house. Originally, it was supposed to be for 6 months. We put the kids into the small international school down there, and the idea was to have just an interesting side adventure while still running the company in China. And then a month later, COVID hit, and suddenly we were somewhat trapped. Although it didn't feel trapped, it was fairly nice being on a small tropical island with COVID raging around. Yes. And so going back to China was off the cards, and we spent a year down there. And then when it came to the end of that year, when actually things were better in China, we sort of had another talk, and we actually decided we wanted to sort of continue this adventure. Have a few friends who live up in Bangkok, and they'd been sort of saying how fun it is to live here, good schools and a good standard of living and interesting people and all that good stuff. So we decided to give it a go. So here we are, 3 years later.
Filming in Thailand.
How involved are you with the filming world in Thailand?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough, quite early on after moving to Bangkok, I met my now business partner, Nicholas Simon.
That will be soon a guest at Filming in Thailand.
Is that right? Okay, perfect. So
we'll fact check what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Now. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a different story. So he runs Indochina Productions, which is a very well established and well regarded production company here in Thailand, and he's got a similar story to me in that I think he's been here something like 15 years, which was the same amount of time I've been in China. And we got talking, and we really felt that there was an opportunity to do something a bit new and create a company together that would mainly target the streamers, the big 5 streamers, so Amazon, Netflix, HBO, Apple, and Disney, as they sort of pivot slightly from their traditional sort of US and European kind of heartlands. Their subscriber numbers have probably peaked there, and as they look for sort of new subscriber growth, then it feels like they are sort of putting Asia, Southeast Asia and Asia in general, high up on their sort of priority list. And so what we felt was that we could, with our sort of combined expertise, we could offer a studio which would create original local content for those streamers.
Filming in Thailand.
What do you mean by original local content?
So what the streamers are looking for as they sort of move into these markets is to produce content that would appeal to a local audience. So it's not just taking The Last of Us or taking Game of Thrones or whatever Netflix thing and showing it to an Asian audience and expecting huge subscriber growth or uptick. It's really about sort of trying to create and commission programming that's going to appeal to a local audience and probably in the local language. So that's what we felt we could offer to them.
Filming in Thailand.
We were very lucky. We quite soon afterwards we were greenlit by HBO to do this new series, Dean's Dynasty, which is a 8-part reality series set in Bangkok. And I think by the time this podcast comes out, will be out on sort of general release on HBO Go.
Nice.
Yes. So we have
It's a first, actually. That's the first time there is this kind of show being streamed.
this
worldwide.
kind of reality show, yeah. And yeah, we're lucky that it's going to be shown on HBO Go throughout Southeast Asia, but also it's going to be simultaneously broadcast on Max in the US. So yeah, it's very exciting.
So you consider this to be a local content?
Yes, absolutely. It's a local, a Thai family, and Thai characters, and often in Thai, although there is spoken English as well, and so yeah, and hopefully appealing to a Thai audience.
Filming in Thailand.
So I'm going to to maybe challenge you a bit on this concept of local content. It sounds like an American concept, localized, more than a Thai concept being brought to the world stage.
I mean, there are definitely sort of.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just would like to understand better.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely aspects of that sort of tradition of reality programming. There's never been something like this sort of created for a Thai audience. And then we have, I think what makes it very Thai is that obviously it's a Thai family, Thai traditions, Thai culture, Thai language, and there's a lot of content in there that could only be shot in Thailand, I can assure you. So you be the judge.
Filming in Thailand.
That brings me to another quote. This one from this legendary series writer, producer, showrunner, maybe Sean Ryan, saying, "A showrunner is the guardian of the creative flame, the person who maintains the vision and integrity of a television series." Was it your job on Dean Dynasty?
Yeah, I think that sums it up quite nicely. I mean, I was obviously, with Nicholas, and we have another partner, Cod Satrasayang. Sorry, I'll say that again. We had another partner, Cod Satrasayang. And, actually it was Cod who brought the original talent to us, and then we sort of created the show. And then it was sort of my job to then write the show and pitch the show, obviously, and then once we'd sort of agreed that pitch, to then try to deliver on what we'd pitched, and to try and maintain that integrity of what we'd done, and keep that sort of spirit of what we'd originally, we shot a trailer and a teaser for the show, and that was part of my job to do that. Yeah.
So 2 questions from there. First, about these people that are your main characters in the series, and then about the environment, the production team, and the way it works in Thailand, filming in Thailand. It doesn't seem to be really in the Thai culture, to go on air and show yourself, show the way you live. Thai culture is more turned to humility. The less you say, the better. The less you show, the better. There is no shame in having money, but there is also no gain in just showing it so much. So how did you deal with that?
I think what we were very lucky with was amazing kind of talent, amazing characters who were willing to open up that side of their lives. I think, maybe a little bit counter to traditional Thai culture. They were kind of excited and, kind of very much up for having, us, have, real kind of almost completely unfettered access to their lives, and, and to their friends, and to their, their family, and, their day-to-day kind of existence. I mean, I think these celebrities were are very much in the public eye. I think with the dawn of not that it's particularly new, but sort of social media, YouTube, TikTok, etc. We have so much more access to these people's lives than we used to, and actually often it's them themselves kind of offering up this information. So we're getting more into that age, and I think we were very lucky that this talent were willing and able to sort of do that, and feeling comfortable to do that.
How big was this project in terms of production? Can you share some numbers?
So
numbers can be the team, can be the budget, can be anything.
Yeah. So what can I share without getting into trouble?
Were you alone on set, or were you surrounded by other people?
Certainly not alone. No. So I mean, this project probably took a couple of years from sort of beginning to completion. We were filming for about a year of that. I think that's quite unusual for a reality series because normally they're shot in much shorter time than that, but we really wanted to sort of be able to tell kind of a full story and across the whole span of that of these people's lives. So that was that's probably longer than normal. We had a fairly decent sized crew. I'd have thought. I'm from the unscripted documentary world. So not from the film world. I think by film crew standards it would be small, but by sort of documentary and TV standards, it was a good size.
Filming in Thailand.
So you make it sound so easy. You move to Thailand, you produce a multi-million-dollar reality TV series for HBO. What's next?
What's next? So we are creating. We have a development slate, obviously. Across all genres, so we're not genre specific, but so there's travel adventure in there, cooking, sports, science, history, all kinds of projects that either we found the talent to fit, or that we feel like we found the sort of slot on a particular platform that works for that content. And we go pitching it, and we see if we can make something happen. And I think we've already had some good success with our development slate, and very much hopeful that after Dean's Dynasty comes out, that will actually give us another big boost for it.
This show is Thailand centric. Is being in Thailand a plus when you're pitching a show?
I think so. Yeah.
Why is that? In which aspect?
Well, interestingly, when I was in China, it was very hard to pitch the streamers, because actually the streamers weren't in China. They didn't have access to. They weren't able to broadcast in China. So the sort of interest in sort of China stories was there, but it was sort of not such a priority for them, I'd say. And then coming to Thailand, it's a little bit been the opposite. I think Thailand is one of the key markets for a lot of the streamers. They've got a sort of decent sized population, and who are middle income and or who can afford to sort of pay for a subscription. And so being here in Thailand, yeah, absolutely, it's definitely helped. A lot of the streamers are actually headquartered in Singapore, and some of them have big offices in Thailand. Some of them have hardly any presence in Thailand. It's sort of depending on different strategies, which, by the way, sort of change on a monthly basis. So I think in general, absolutely, if you're hoping to sort of sell a story about Thailand, it helps that you're sort of based here and have the information, have the know-how and experience to do it.
As a foreigner in Thailand, is it a competitive edge to be a foreigner in Thailand to sell a Thai story, or you need to be Thai to sell a Thai story to an international streamer?
Yeah, I think you'd have to ask the streamers about that.
If you ask the streamer, they will always come back to this concept of we want local language, local story, local people.
Yeah.
Which by the way, means not American, because you have the world, which is the US, and then local, that is not the US. So, yes, my question, I'm wondering genuinely if being a foreigner in Thailand, where the industry is already quite strong, I mean, quite mature, is a competitive advantage when you want to pitch an international streamer.
Yeah, well, I think you've sort of answered your own question already. I think there's two sides to it. You know, the one on the one hand, you know, obviously, you know, we have experience of making international shows, and you know, have produced stuff for Netflix and others in the past, and so, you know, in terms of track record, I think that probably helps. You know, you can also sort of, maybe if you've worked internationally, then you understand how it works internationally. So that can sometimes help. But on the other side, you know, the streamers, as you mentioned, they're you know, very much focused on trying to get, you know, genuine, authentic stories from Thailand and from Thai people. So there's a balance there to be had. And, you know, the way that we do it is to sort of surround ourselves with Thai filmmakers and you know, Thai creatives as well, to, you know, be able to sort of hopefully give the best of both worlds.
Filming in Thailand.
Here is a series of 10 questions that you can answer only by yes or no.
The yes or no questions.
The yes or no questions.
What's your name?
Yes.
Nice name. Okay, let's start for real.
Filming in Thailand.
Okay, question 1. Have you ever worked with a major Hollywood studio?
Yes.
Have you produced a film with a budget exceeding $100 million?
No.
You had to think. Looks like it was like $99 million.
Am I allowed to say yes or no? Yes or no? No, I mean, because just part of working in China particularly, there was a lot of sort of big budget stuff coming through, and we do a tiny part of those things. So it's not as though we ever...
You could say yes.
Yeah, but I was trying to think whether any of those were big enough. I think possibly not, but they may be approaching it.
Do you have strong network of industry connections?
Yes.
Have you ever faced challenges with production delays?
Yes.
How bad?
Oh, well, I mean, COVID killed us all, didn't it? So that was... I'm still delivering something now, which was supposed to be sort of 2020. So.
Have you worked on product that required special effects or CGI?
Yes.
Have you produced film that were shot on location around the world?
Yes.
Have you ever worked on a film with a tight production schedule?
Yes.
Have you ever had to deal with on-set emergencies or crises? And this I need more than a yes.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think probably every producer would always say yes to that question. For sure. I mean, in China, we got arrested several times, you know, while filming. But
I mean, seriously arrested. The police
arrested.
coming and bring you out.
Yeah. One time we were filming in the northwest of China, and we were filming a story about nomads using solar panels instead of cooking. You know, instead of cooking and using fuel for electricity and for cooking food. And so we were literally filming this nomad with a kind of herd of camels in the desert. And coming back from that, one of our crew had to take a peep. So we stopped the car, got out, and saw it was in the middle of the desert, and saw across the desert a rocket ship, like pointing up into from the.
What do you mean
desert.
a rocket ship?
It was the Chinese sort of launch site. And when we saw that, we were like, that's interesting.
You mean interstellar planet ship, or
I don't know. I mean, I couldn't possibly comment any more than that. But basically, we saw a launch pad in the distance, and didn't think too much of it. Although, it's interesting. And then carried on, and within probably a kilometre, you know, we'd obviously been seen that we'd stopped, and we had the army waiting for us to take us away and, you know, look through all our footage and, you know, check that we weren't kind of international spies.
Can picture the encounter. You stopped in the desert. What were you doing? He stopped. Sure.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that would, that would happen. In China, it can be very tough to sort of film, obviously, because there's a general suspicion of foreigners with cameras there. So that was always tough.
Filming in Thailand.
Another quite funny one was we were making a documentary with Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like an environmental documentary called Before the Flood, and shooting in China. And one of the things we didn't realize was, because of Titanic, how popular, how big Leonardo DiCaprio was. So he sort of came over, and massive entourage, bodyguards. He needed sort of all kinds of like things that we weren't really, we dealt with celebrities before, but not quite that level. Anyway, so what we were told were, wherever we filmed, and we had this big schedule of filming around Beijing and around other places in China, wherever we filmed, we could have him with boots on the ground for no more than 3 minutes before he would then, there'd be this danger of him getting mobbed, and the security issue.
That much.
So that was that sort of suddenly became a challenge. When you're filming, you kind of hope that you've got more than 3 minutes per time.
So you had what kind of a caravan of fans following you around, trying to find the next location?
Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible, like the sort of support and interest in him, and we ended up having to do a lot of filming of him sort of in a rickshaw being like driven around the streets or like on the move somewhere, so that we just like didn't have him sort of stopped at any point and mobbed.
So I have another quote for you from Leonardo DiCaprio, saying, "I'm the king of the world." Do you agree?
I would have to agree with that, having spent some time filming with him.
You are listening to Filming in Thailand, a podcast by Tero Documentary, with your host, Stéphane Lambert.
And here we are back with our guest, Patrick Carr. This is Filming in Thailand. And Patrick, I have another quote for you about show running. This one is from Matthew Weiner, saying, "The showrunner is the custodian of the characters and the world they inhabit, and it's a responsibility that should never be taken lightly." What does it mean?
I mean, I think without wanting to sound too grandiose about the whole thing, you are the sort of, as we sort of talked earlier, you are sort of the custodian of the creative of the show, and really, you're representing the studio, and you're representing all the people who are not actually on set. So I think that's true. I think I definitely felt that way throughout the show, was that it was really my responsibility to sort of keep it on track in that way. Yeah.
So how do you manage being in the middle of the creative side, dealing with the director, dealing with the talents of different sorts? It can be the writer, the director, but also the actors, the comedians, and having to to be in line with the budget, with the producer point of view.
Yep. It's a balancing act. Yeah. So luckily Nicholas Simon, who you'll be talking to on another podcast, he was very supportive. We had great support from HBO and their team. And, it's a process, and, sometimes you don't always get it right, but, you just got to keep going.
Have you ever been facing ego crisis on set that you had to manage?
Ego crisis. I think with this kind of show, it's soft scripted. Yeah. So
you're referring to the show,
I was talking about Dean Dynasty. Yeah. Oh, in general, ego crisis.
It can be Dean Dynasty, but in general, I don't want to be too specific because I know you have NDAs.
Yes. I'm glad you stopped me there. No, but it was fine on Dean's Dynasty. But I think there's always a conversation that can be had on set. I think with egos, I mean, when you're working, I had this a lot in China, working with big Chinese celebrities, surrounded by a massive entourage, under huge pressure themselves. Actually, it's quite funny, meeting these sort of big celebrities. But whenever you actually spent any time with them, you realized how tough their life was. Like from the outside, it seems they have an amazing time, doing all these amazing stuff and super rich and wealthy and hanging out with all the stars.
But tough in what sense?
Well, I think
the pressure.
Yeah, the pressure is huge. I think, particularly in China, they are scheduled within an inch of their lives, and actually don't have too much say in that schedule. It's sort of, it's very kind of, they're at the mercy of all these demands from the different studios and different press and, all that kind of thing. So, by the time I'd ended up working with a lot of these celebrities, I was like, God, I'm glad I'm not you, and I'd sort of feel a bit sorry for them, because it's almost like they'd been trapped by their own celebrity. So, in terms of egos, sure, I don't know what celebrity doesn't, because I think you probably need an ego to get there. But
maybe also linked to the size of the market, because once you make it in China, the figures, the numbers are impressive.
Immense. Yeah, absolutely. And also there's 1,000 other guys who want to be you, right? And so, or maybe not even 1,000, a million, a billion.
Let's talk about you now.
So anyway, so with those celebrities, I think it's tough for them, and I always, I'm conscious of that when we're working together.
Let's project ourselves down the road. There was a strikes in the U.S. From writers, actors, people saying, "Hey, we have to safeguard our jobs because creative AI is coming and it's changing the whole game." Are you dealing with this new tools coming to the creative process and maybe also to the production process?
AI in particular, or
new tools. AIs are quite impressive. I mean, for collaborating, for all these tasks that required very high set of skills from human beings a few years ago, and that are now completely automated for a fraction of the price.
Yeah. I've never even thought to use AI for color grading, but now that you've mentioned it, maybe I will.
Cut.
No, it is fascinating, isn't it? It feels like a whole brave new world, and it's one of those things. New technology that you don't really have a choice. You have to sort of experiment. You have to see where it's going to take you. You have to sort of see how the industry is using it. I've been in the industry for 20 years and there's been a lot of new technology coming through. I do believe that...
you said new technologies coming along the way.
Yeah.
This is a game changer. Like the same way Excel changed the accounting profession.
Sure. Maybe. I would say,
or maybe not. I mean,
I'd just say, accounting is one thing, but sort of creativity and storytelling is another. And like, of course, AI can probably write you a novel, write you a script, write you a pitch, whatever that is. But I also believe that that storytelling is something very human, and that probably, even though AI can do a very good version, humans are the best people for telling each other stories, and I think that's what filmmaking and documentary making is about, really. So AI can be a tool to support that and to help you and maybe do your color grading, I don't know. But, I'm not sure about whether that's something that's going to completely replace humans. I also wonder whether there's going to be a sort of counter culture or a counter argument to this sort of digitalization, AIization of everything. Because, for example, look at sort of vinyl. Look how vinyl has sort of made a comeback. I'm actually going off to do a shoot on Super 8 in Thailand. In a couple of weeks, and I think there is a reason for those things coming back, and I think there's something about the analog nature of it, the human nature of it, the imperfect nature of it, the fact that we as humans are not perfect, clearly, and actually it requires, those imperfections are often what makes something, touch us emotionally.
Filming in Thailand.
Imagine you were handed over $100 million today. What would you do with it?
I'd invest in my own productions, I think.
One film? Everything in one film?
No, I don't think so. I love sort of storytelling and filmmaking, and there's so many interesting stories out there to tell. There are all, and opportunities to sort of to do new things and redraw the narrative in so many ways. So that's what I'm excited about doing. And if I had hundreds of millions of dollars, then absolutely I'd sort of
you're really the typical producers, because I say 100 million and now you're making it hundreds of millions.
Come on, Stefan, you can go up to more than 100 million.
Okay, what can I say? You're too good.
Filming in Thailand.
Let's imagine for a moment that we could travel back in time, and I'm going to invite you for this time travel.
This is the time traveling machine.
So we are meeting with your own self, but at 20 years old. Where would we be? What would you have in mind, and what would you tell your own self?
We might be in Africa. I spent some time straight after university there. I can't remember, when did I graduate? 20 or 21? Anyway, yeah, I think I might have been in Africa. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, but I was having an amazing time. I was doing some volunteer work there. And
so what your own self today would tell your own self, but aged 20 years?
Do you know what I'd say to that person is don't worry about it so much. Just enjoy your 20s, because I actually spent a lot of time in my 20s. I wouldn't say angst ridden, but like worrying about my future, worrying about what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, and where my passion was, and all that. And I think that's actually something that comes to you. Life does come to you, and like you can't force it sometimes. And like you find your own way, and trying to force it is just going to make you unhappy.
So if I understand you well, you would say that you do your own stuff, you let it grow, you let it come to you, and the best will happen.
I do believe that. I think I'm an optimistic person in that way.
I'd like to offer you the award for Best Guest. If Fiat is still with us. Yes, Fiat is still with us. So this is the award for Best Guest.
Is it Best Guest today or Best Guest in the last hour?
Yeah, Best Guest today.
As long as you tell Nicholas Simon that I got this award and don't give him.
Of course, we'll negotiate that right after the show. This is the official t-shirt from one of our partners, Bangkok Doc, the Bangkok International Documentary Film Award and Festival in Bangkok.
Filming in Thailand.
And that concludes this episode of Filming in Thailand. Our show is available on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube with subtitles. This is important for people who can not just enjoy audio podcast. You can also go to filminginthailand.com for more details and links to whatever you want us to make public and to for people to be able to see, to watch legally. And I want to extend a warm thanks to the teams at Terror Radio, Woody Podcast, Terror Documentary, Terror Creative Lab, Wishtrend Thailand, and more specifically to Brian Makar, who greenlight the show, and Lina for opening Terror Radio Studios doors to us.
Okay, people, fantastic. That's a wrap.
That was Filming in Thailand, an original podcast brought to you by Tero Documentary on Rudi Podcast, with your host, Stefan Lombe.
Thank you for listening and stay tuned for our next episode of Filming in Thailand. Is it fair to say that you thought you would do Thailand and Thailand is doing you?
I'd say that's totally fair to say.